Could I ask everybody to rise, please? We're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to ask Mr. Mayor and Mrs. Gardner to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Tonight's action-packed lineup. First of all, we're short-staffed tonight. Mr. Kiley sends his regards. We hope he feels better. I know he's home ill. Mr. Brown is in jolly old London today on business, so he sends his regrets, and I'm not sure of our other colleagues. I think they may join us. They might be caught commuting. Tonight we're going to start with the information technology budget, which is a holdover item from a prior meeting. The reason for that is the IT director has been ill. We were hoping that he'd be able to be here tonight, but my understanding is that's not the case. Correct, Mr. Mayor?
That's correct.
Okay, and we wish him well. Then we're going to go into our culture and recreation section of the budget. That would be the library, parks and recreation, Penfield Pavilion Complex, because we haven't talked about Penfield enough, waterfront and marina, the Carl Dickman Golf Course, and the H. Smith Richardson Golf Course. And then tonight we're going to have the not-for-profit organizations. Now, the not-for-profit organizations, there's many of them, and they all do good work, and we are all very familiar with the work that they do, and we thank them. A number of years ago, in the effort of time, because we have so many budget hearings, we turned the not-for-profit discussion into a question and answer session. So if members of the board have questions of any of the not-for-profits, they would have the opportunity to ask them directly tonight. But it is not like a regular budget presentation for the department heads. That said, during public comment, any of the not-for-profit directors or personnel, board members, who would like to say a few brief words about your organization, please feel free to. I also just want to make sure you understand that's no disrespect meant towards the organizations whatsoever. They're pretty similar, the same organizations year over year. We are very familiar with them. We do read the information provided to us, and I just wanted to point that out and thank you for all the good work that you guys do. With that, do any board members have any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, the first item on the agenda is Budget 3110, which is the information technology budget. You'll notice in the information technology budget, there is a line item for IT software for $564,000. That is a new item as of this year. Through consultation with the town's legal counsel, it was determined that since there are ongoing contract negotiations, the discussion of this item was appropriate for private executive session at this time, so that we could get a full briefing and yet not compromise or give away any positions related to contract negotiations. With this in mind, I would ask for a board member to propose a private executive session, and then we will go out back. Mr. DeWitt? Do I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Stone. All in favor of going into private executive session? Any opposed? None. We're going to go out back for just a few minutes. My apologies for the inconvenience to everybody, and we'll be right back. Thank you. DeWitt, do I have a second? I'll take Mrs. Leclerc. All in favor of coming out of private executive session? Those opposed? Abstentions? I'm going to take those that didn't raise their hands as in favor of.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
No problem. All right, we're back in public session. My apologies for the tardiness of the hour.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If I may, one comment.
Please.
While we were out, there was a letter placed in everybody's place. That's another letter that was received from the Conservation. Just want to draw your attention that
Thank you
wasn't
very
in the
much.
prior package.
Thank you very much. We're now on budget item number 3110, which is information technology. That's page 198. You know I'm getting old. I have to go for the glasses. All right. With the exception of the one item we spoke of back, questions on the IT budget? Mr. Mayor, you're presenting this to us. Would you like to speak to it briefly, sir?
Yeah, I spent, since I learned that it was very likely that Mr. Leslie would not be here, and for that, I'm sorry. But I spent significant time with the three of the members of the IT department, going over line by line and looking at the what each dollar is spent for, pretty much. And I came fairly satisfied that it was a pretty tight budget. I am still, I haven't finalized my evaluation, a little bit concerned with line 56, or object code, account number, whatever we call it, 56140, Special Department Supplies, which Leslie has requested $20,000. We've spent $46,000 year-to-date. We spent $92,000 in 14. We spent $72,000 in 13. We spent $44,000 in 12. Now, the account is, in looking at it, is kind of like a catch-all account. It's things that don't fit into the other categories, and it just seems like there's always something that comes up. He has put it, the $20,000 that he's put in there, he's indicated is for updating licenses. So other than that, though, I think the budget is tight, the dollars are specific, and that's it.
And so the biggest other change in here is capital outlay.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much.
That'd be page 200.
What we asked, and I know it took a while, but we asked the IT department to put together a equipment replacement plan. Given that equipment replacement plan, some of the items are 4 years, some are 5 years, some are 6 years. This is the first year of that plan. This is what it would take to meet that plan.
Questions? Mr. DeWitt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Professional services, disaster recovery, I know it's only $6,000. I know every year we talk about disaster recovery, and what, do we have a plan, disaster recovery plan? Is this a person, professional services? Is this a service? Is this a what? And line 53210.
Yeah, that is primarily it's two items that's in there. $3,000 for physical labor, equipment, replacement equipment at the Fairfield Woods Library, and another $3,000 to connect to the state Nutmeg network, which I know it exists. It's a public safety information network. It's an educational network. I'm not fully appraised. The first selectman may know more about that network. In fact, I'm sure he does than I do.
Pay to connect, is that, it is a service?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm okay with that. The capital. So we've already heard from police department and the fire department, emergency committee, they're all buying laptops and different stuff. Are these, first off, I'm assuming this isn't just one each. There's no quantities on here.
Yeah, I was actually tried to get a spreadsheet today. One does exist. I did not think about that till late in the afternoon, but there is an Excel spreadsheet that supports and the number per year, price, and the extension,
Right.
the amount shown.
That's okay. My question is this, except for, obviously the printers, right? Are these costs fully loaded with software, like ready to plug in, or do we get a laptop
Yes.
with nothing in it and we got to put in our own?
No,
So these are plug
well,
and play?
these would be plug in, but, theoretically, we would have the license, the one we close out, that would be if it was up to date, it would transfer. If we were upgrading, then we'd pay for the license to upgrade.
So we buy these things with software loaded, and then whatever obligation we have to keep them up to. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Are you good, Mr. DeWitt?
Yep, thanks.
Other questions? Mr. Walsh?
Yeah, would you be able to share that Excel spreadsheet with us on the capital requests?
Certainly.
And what departments each of those computers or printers or tablets, I presume you mean like iPads or something similar?
Yes.
Where each of those pieces are proposed to be going?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Other questions, comments, concerns on the IT budget? All right. Mr. Walsh?
I guess I have if we remove some of this money into contingency, such as the capital requests, until we had a further presentation by the head of the department, would that be a problem in the short term?
Is that a question to me?
Yes.
Yeah, no, would not.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, seeing none on this budget, I'll go to the public for any comments or on the IT department budget. Seeing none one last time around the board. Mr. DeWitt?
Just one more quick one. Do we still have, or are we convening the IT steering committee? This is a question from last year. My notes from last year said that they hadn't met since November, last November. So, does that body exist?
That body does exist, and Mr. Tatro probably has more information on that than I do.
Yes, that body exists and has begun meetings.
And that's the IT director, and who's on the committee?
I'm going to turn to Mr.
Gone.
Is he gone?
Nebraska?
I
Tom
can get you a list of
Dabrowski.
those.
Yeah, it's-
Tom Dabrowski is kind of helping head that up and kind of make sure that they meet on a regular basis. So we can get you a list of who's on that, certainly.
Yeah, that'd be great, thand you. That's it for me, thank you.
But certainly represents the police, fire, the heavy users on the town side that you'd expect.
Oh, okay, police and fire. I'd like to see that list, please. Sorry. I'd like to see that list, please, if you don't mind.
Mr. Walsh?
Bob, under the disaster recovery, did you say one of the pieces of equipment is for the Fairfield Woods?
There's $3,000 in there for work at Fairfield's Library, and there's $3,000 in there for network connection to the network.
Is that for the library, or is that down below in the basement where we keep all the town's backup servers and things like that?
I would assume it's down below in the recovery, in the disaster recovery area.
Okay. Are we going to be still supporting that area? I mean, Mike, you and I went on a tour on that 3 or 4 years ago, where we were advised that that whole area is underwater, basically, because of the design of that building and the way the water naturally is halfway up the wall on the outside, and they have to have pumps continuously running and things like that, and the problems that they had there with during storms when power would go out and that the grates can start filling up with the water there, and I know we both shook our heads at that when we went for that tour. Are we still maintaining that site, or has there been talk about moving that site to someplace for higher ground, or that wouldn't be, for lack of a better word, one leak away from being a disaster itself, let alone disaster recovery?
Jim, as we talked then, I'm not clear at all why that was necessarily chosen
Yep.
for a site. One would think if you're trying to pick something outside the floodplain, you'd pick something dry.
Yeah.
However, it kind of is what it is. One of the issues is certainly power. There is a portable generator that's brought in there in case of storms to help mitigate any of the power use, both to provide power for the backup site, as well as provide power to the sump pumps to keep it dry. We have been talking about exploring alternative sites. We've also been talking about moving the IT center out of the town hall, out of the basement of a building in the floodplain, to make our primary site more safe. And we've had a number of talks with some different options in town. We're not far enough along to say, hey, we'll be out in 6 months, that type of thing. We certainly would have to come back before the boards for money to make that move. but it certainly has been part of our topics of discussion.
Okay. And where do we stand with the disaster recovery? Do we have a plan? Do we test it? We've had some like live drills of this to make sure it works? How often are they? I mean,
Yeah, at this
because
point.
we talk about a lot about disaster recovery, it's just, you need to know that it works.
No argument. We spent a while to get a handle on all the equipment we have and to make sure to know that where it is, who's using it from that standpoint, and make sure the data is backed up specifically. From a standpoint of your definition of disaster recovery, which I agree with, we're not there yet. We have had some opportunities to do a backup trial for our finance department in Munis up at Burr School and using that. You saw the last couple of years we've moved Munis to the cloud so that we've at least insulated us from that standpoint. But the disaster recovery plan is not where it needs to be yet.
Okay.
Yeah, basically to follow up a little bit on that, the Munis downloads nightly, so Munis is daily recovery. The what's stored at Fairfield Woods, excuse me, is offloaded once a week to off-site facility. So they come pick it up once a week.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Just also to expand on that a bit, I was talking about some of the, the word processing, the kind of applications within Town Hall. We do and have instituted a practice of testing our emergency communication center and its backup progress once a quarter, and literally had folks, pack up, get to Westport, see how the handoff works, see where they sit in Westport, where they park, so that everybody's familiar with what's going on from that. So our emergency systems are backed up at that level. We've also, with respect to the police and fire public safety campus, for lack of a better term, have a much more extensive backup power supply than we've had in the past. And as you've seen it come through here, both in generators as well as the microgrid system that we're working on there.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? I want to wrap this up. Seeing none, we're done with that budget. We're going to go on to Budget 7010, which is the library, and that's page 275. Good evening. Thank you for being here, and we apologize for the delay. And we'll turn it right over to you guys.
Hi, Karen Ronald, Town Librarian. I have to my left our Deputy Town Librarian, Nancy Coriati, Jim Swift, our IT guy, and Joe Rooney, our Treasurer of the Library Board.
Welcome. Go right ahead.
So normally, I'm really not asked to do a presentation, so I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about what's been going on in the library and then answer questions with respect to line items. Doing a little bit of research about Fairfield Public Library. It's always been one of the best libraries in the state, and it has been recognized for that. And right now, we're probably the second busiest library in Connecticut according to our stats, and we're very proud of that. We're only behind Greenwich Library, and that's with a budget about 3 times what we have. So we're using our dollars wisely, and we're really putting our library and our community on the map. We have wonderful initiatives like our Seed to Seed Library, which was initiated by Nancy, which has received regional interest with respect to other libraries coming to visit. It's received regional interest, national interest, and international interest, and then it has actually been highlighted in French magazines. It's part of an international seed directory. We've done very, very well with that program. We had a job series program that we started in 2008 in response to the horrible economic downturn. And with that, we have won an award from the state, but also we have helped 130 people get jobs and employment. So they come to the job series, they learn how to do new resumes, and learn how to apply for jobs online, how to conduct themselves in interviews, and then are basically counseled one-on-one. And as of yesterday, 130 people reported they got jobs after being through the series. I suspect there are more people who just haven't shared that great news with us. Other initiatives are the Teen Services Department is well regarded in the state. We have the teen librarian who's always requested to go to other libraries to tell them how to run a great library for teens, why do their programs work so well, their collections, et cetera, that she's highly regarded in the state, is getting really great recognition for what we do here, and we're sharing our knowledge with other libraries. The Children's Services Department has done very, very well. They had 400 people at their Frozen party for kids on the weekend. I don't know if anyone was there. And it was something where other libraries are coming to see what we're doing and how we're doing it. We're really being well recognized for the programs and the services we do, and I think we're really meeting some of the needs of the 21st century community. I can wax on.
Let's go to the budget. Thank you very much for that. It's very impressive what you guys do. And it's glad that you're helping the unemployed, too. So questions, we'll go to Mr. Mottola first.
Hi, how are you tonight? Just a couple quick questions. So on the part-time line item, you want an additional $17,000. Is that to add more part-time?
Not, we actually, in years gone by, we actually had a budget of $512,000, and then we agreed for quite a severe cut. We're finding that's tough on the full-time people, number one, because they're doing more hours and they really should be doing a service desk. We also have this Connecticut state mandated thing now for sick payment. We actually have to pay our part-time staff for sick pay, which is now rolled into this. And then some of our part-time people have been approved for a 2% increase in their hourly rate. And that rate may go from, it's like 40 or 50 cents per person.
Okay.
So we're trying to get back to where we were and then, you know, absorb what we have to do with the sick pay, et cetera.
And it looks like under line item 56-180 library materials, it looks like you're pretty much trying to get back to where you were 3 or 4 years ago. Is that correct?
Well, in 2008, we had a budget of 597, and we went up from there to 637, and we've been cut consistently, and it's really, really hurting our community. We have a community that reads twice the national average, and so that's about 16 items per capita as far as borrowing. We have we have 63 different formats because we know people read and learn in different ways, so they might need visual matter, film, they might need audio to learn, etc. And all these prices are going up, and then you add on another layer, which is the digital library. So now we have digital books, digital e-audios, we have digital film, we have digital music. And this is far more expensive than the print counterpart at this time. And we cannot negotiate these prices. We do what we can to continue to respond to the community, but we know they're more expensive. So a print copy of a bestseller, we get a great discount on it. Could be $15. For an audio, or for a large print book, it's probably twice that much. For an audio book of some bestseller, it's 3 times that much. And for the equivalent in digital format, it can be 6 times as much. It can be $90 an item. So obviously, we can't respond to all of this, but we're trying to do our very best with this budget.
Thank you.
Other questions? Mr. Walsh?
The change that you made in your personnel where you went, I'm sorry, where you increased the co-circulation librarians by 1, but you
No.
decreased, is that correct?
Mistake. It's a mistake. It's a typo. We only have 2 circulation coordinators, one at the main and one at the branch. And then we have actually 3 reference librarians where it says it's 2. So it's a typo. We have not added any full-time people, and nor have we added any part-time people.
So there are 2 typos in here, or just 1? So on the line that says
Swap.
co-circulation library, there's 2, and
There's
and
2,
the
not
fiscal
3.
budget's 2?
Pardon me?
And the budget should be 2, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And then down below, where you say reference librarian, it says last year's budget was 3?
And there is still
2?
3. There's
So
still
that's
3,
3 too.
yes.
So that's a
there are 2
change.
typos, yes. It's
Okay.
not a change, it's a typo.
Are you good, Mr. Walsh?
On that, yes. What line do you budget your movies?
That's library materials. All formats for library materials are, so movies are in that.
Okay, and what, for movies, what type of formats are you supporting, or plan on purchasing?
Well, we buy DVDs, Blu-rays, and digital streaming movies now.
Okay. Are you buying VHS movies
Oh,
anymore?
we haven't in years.
Okay.
We've had them on the shelves
Yeah.
because people still had those machines, but we haven't been buying them for years. I don't even know if they sell them anymore, quite frankly, but we do not buy them.
Okay, so you just keep them on the shelves?
Yes. If we
Okay.
can't get it in DVD or Blu-ray format, or if it's a classic and we want to keep it, we'll do it. But we do not buy VHS.
And under the budget, how many DVD movies are you planning on purchasing this coming year?
Don't know, but it's about, we hope to spend at least $50,000 on movies. And it's their second most popular item after books. It's
All
a
right.
very popular item.
All right. Would you be able to give me the statistics on what you plan on purchasing? You have a purchasing, some type of detail on what you plan on purchasing? The number of books, the number of
Oh, we
movies?
can't do that. We can give you, because first of all, we don't know what's coming out. We're continuously reading reviews, et cetera. I know that we probably bought 18,000 items last year, and we'd like to be buying close to 20,000 coming up, but I haven't figured out the numbers on that. I can probably break it down as far as how much we expect to spend on each sort of item type or each grouping, but I can't tell you how many. Depends on the cost. It depends on what's available. It's kind of an art.
So when you ask for $600,000 for library materials, you have no plan going in on what you plan on spending on?
I do not have a plan for how many units I'm going to buy, but I can tell you proportionately what I would probably buy. Half of that would be print materials, and that includes books, newspapers, and magazines. Another 120 or so, and unless we change, a database, that would be about 120 for databases. I said 50,000 for movies. Let me see. But I can't give you units because it depends on what happens between now and then. And a book can be a print book, a bestseller for $15, or it can be a large print book for $30, or it can be an audio book for $45. So it's not that easy to do that. It's not how we plan.
All right. So far, you've detailed $300,000 for print materials, books, magazines, newspapers, $120,000 for database materials, and $50,000 for movies.
60,000 for digital. About that.
What's digital consist? What's your
That's,
definition of digital?
that's like digital services, like digital books, digital e-audio. And we've gotten into streaming, so we have streaming movies now, and we have streaming music. And that will probably be about 15,000. Audio, 35, 40,000, and then music on top of that.
So we supply music as well.
Yeah.
Okay. What do we do for
Done that
music?
forever.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do we supply for music? Do you buy CDs?
We buy CDs. Yeah.
CDs.
It's probably one of our best collections and well-used.
Are you allowed to buy that digitally like you do with a book and
Yeah.
rent it out?
Yeah.
So somebody can have that out for a week without ever having to come into the library, or no?
Yep.
Okay.
You can go to our website, have a barcode, an active library card, put in your barcode, download the music.
And that'll last for a period of time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So after digital, which was 60,000, anything else?
I told you streaming, which is part of that.
Streaming?
Well, it's a different budget.
Streaming's
Told you
mo-
film. Yes, streaming movies and streaming music.
Movies and music. Okay. Anything else?
You've got the music, you've got the audio, you've got the film, the streaming, the digital, the databases, and the print.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would leave, let's say, about $20,000 for other things out of the 600.
We would like to be able to have that flexibility. And the more money we have, the more we buy for our patrons, and we have huge lists for books that are on hold now.
Now, when you say $300,000 for print materials, books, magazines, newspapers, are you committed to at least $300,000, or do you just, could it be, when you have the 600, you spend $200,000, depending on what you want to
Well,
do that year?
300,000 is probably where we should be, yes.
Okay, and who makes that decision? Do
have-
you, or
we
does
have-
the library board of trustees, or somebody else?
the professional librarians, we have a selection committee. I come up with a budget based on circulation, use, all sorts of trends, et cetera. Then we go to the board, and they agree with the budget or approve the budget, and we go from there.
Okay. That's all I have for right now.
Other members? We'll go to Mrs. Marmion, actually. You had your hand up before, and then I'll come back. Mrs. Leclerc, Mr. Becker.
Thanks. I just wanted to follow up. It's not in the budget, but Mr. Walsh had referenced the flooding. We took the tour. There's been work done at the branch library. Haven't heard that there are any concerns or issues. How's it going over there? Is it dry? Is it?
Yeah.
We haven't had any water down in the basement
No.
for maybe at least a year and a half.
Nancy, you may need the mic.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we haven't had any water down in the basement for at least a year and a half or so.
And the mold issue
Mold
that's
issue,
been
they
resolved?
came, they knocked down the walls and all of that area, and they replaced everything, so, and they've tested it, so there's no mold or anything down there.
Good.
Good, thank you.
We're going to go to Mrs. Leclerc, Mr. Becker.
It's a quick question, I guess, and it's probably more for Bob to answer. And that is, when I went for the tour of the library, they had explained that there was, that when books are lost and people pay to replace them, that the funds that are collected don't go back to their materials budget, but it goes to the town's budget. And so then they have to use their line item here to replace books that are lost. And I was wondering, can that money be redirected directly to the library?
Earmarked?
Or, yeah. So that they at least have the materials that they're supposed to.
I mean, theoretically, the ability to spend money, the authorization's already comes out of the budget. So I guess you could, I mean, that's a revenue item.
Right.
But,
like
I
how-
mean, it's, I don't know if anybody's going to,
Similar to like
I mean-
recreations fund.
I mean, you could, that's what I'm saying, you could create a revolving fund, something like that. But, you know, or just,
Can you look into that, Mr. Mayor? Report back to us?
yeah. Do we know what the volume is, how much we're talking about?
We need to go over the revenue.
Okay.
Fair enough. Okay, we'll do that after. Thank you. You shirked your responsibility there, Linda. Are you all set, Mary?
That's my only question, yes.
Mr. Becker?
Thank you. So, on the library materials line, can you supply as follow-up that breakout for this year? Can you also supply what your breakout was in the makeup of your $600,000 request for fiscal year 15? And then also what it was once all the reductions were taken out, and it came down to the 485, your new, at that point, once it was set, what you then plan to do for the following year, and then also where you are now in relation to those, just to see how we're kind of trending. So four things.
Yeah, we can do that. I'm happy to do that. I will tell you that it's very challenging to say that if 75% of the year has gone by, that we have spent 75% of the
Right.
library materials budget, because
No.
publishing, like Mr. Flynn would know, just so you understand that. 'Cause
Yeah.
there are busier seasons, there are different needs at different times.
More where you're trending, not necessarily spent or encumbered, but where you sort of think it'll be at the end.
Fully spent.
Fully spent where you think.
Fully spent.
But within
We're-
what, within there in
We're
this year?
going to spend every penny.
No.
We're down so far in our library materials budget.
No, I understand that.
So I-
It's-
It
it's
it may be
fully
easier,
spent,
it
the
may be
breakout
easier to
estimate.
just do this by percentage, right? 50% printed material, 30%
fine,
audio,
too.
20%, you know,
That- that's-
and then, right.
yeah, we can do that.
Because clearly the dollars, you know, it's going to be 598, 324, it doesn't really matter, right?
And where I'm trying to go is you asked for this number last year, you didn't get this number, now you're asking for it again. And I'm just sort of trying to kind of build from that point where you trended
Right.
to now, sort of, and I understand that they adjust, but just sort of see that history as you build up, asking for, you know, in your hope to get the number you wanted last year. when you're all said and done.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, we
that's
can
all.
absolutely do that. I will say that it would be great to get back to that number and then have an incremental increase that we'd all be much happier with, so we can plan too. This up and down with budgets really, really hurts our collections, and we are well-known for our collections in the state and in our community, and we'd love to get to a level and then say, okay, we'll agree to this, so we can plan too.
Yeah, no, I definitely see where you're going, so, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? So when I look at your budget, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Walsh, can I?
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
So when I look at your budget, it comes down to two items, right? It's going up, essentially going up by, where's my notes here? $300,000. Rough number.
Just under,
Right. I round. So $300,000.
unironic.
$300,000, and about 130 of that is salary. Okay? But that's the contract settlement of 3 years.
I think I provided you with the documents. If you look at the library,
Yep.
had we transferred in the 15 salary, the library budget in total would be up 6.5%.
Okay, so it's up 6.5% as opposed to 8.28. Correct? That still seems high.
Well, you have to understand, they have predominantly THEA people, and we have the contract, part of the contracts, no, wait, 15 to 16, you'd have 1 year of contract settlement in there as part of that 6.5.
I'll have to go back and look at it. It still seems high to me in terms of the overall budget going up by 6%. Right? It just doesn't seem,
Well,
doesn't
you have-
pass the smell test.
You have the no, you have restoration of the books, and you have an increase in part-time globally, plus you have restoration of part-time hours.
Okay, so the
Plus
part-time.
you have institution of a new part-time sick requirement by the state.
Yeah, which is like $5,000.
Yeah.
But you get there, you keep adding these.
Okay, I'll do the math, but the bottom line is, it comes to 130,000 is personnel, 115,000 is the library collection, right? Which comes to 245,000 out of the just less than 300,000.
Well, it is.
Right, the just less than $300,000 increase, right?
Yeah.
Right, so you're talking $50,000 of other contractual stuff, or other stuff, correct? No increase in personnel on the full-time side, no increase in personnel on the part-time side.
No.
Restoration of your collections, and $50,000 of other stuff.
Other stuff, including 20,000 for capital items that we
Right.
brought Jim here to talk about if he would like. And the
I
rest-
want to let Mr. Walsh go to his
Okay.
questions, see if there's others, and then I would like to go to the capital.
Sure.
So, go ahead, Mr.
Well,
Walsh.
one of them involved capital, but before we get to capital, explain to me what fees and professional services are.
It's a combination of things. A large majority of that are software licenses, including our online library catalog, which is our mission-critical piece of software. It includes programs, it includes movie licenses, so we can show public performances, and then some professional services like design of materials or piano tuning, things like that, fish tank cleaning, stuff like that.
Okay, because it's grown 66% since
Well, what's happened is we-
2012.
no, we
No, since
transferred-
2000, you're not letting me finish the question. Since 2012, when the budget was 97,884, it is now 163,175.
Because that, a large part of that, I was requested to move the software licenses out of another line and move them up to there. That's what happened.
Okay. And what year were you requested to do that? Was that in 13? Is that why it went up so large in 13?
That's why.
Okay. And when you talk about software licenses, are you also talking about licenses for these movies and things like that?
Oh, that's public performance rights,
Okay.
so that we can show movies in the library.
In the library,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, we have film programs there.
If we have a,
Children's program, if we wanted to have a film for a child,
Mhm.
children's program, we have to pay a public performance thing, so we pay a license, a flat license.
for that year or for as long as we want to show it?
For that year.
That
Just
year-
for that
it's
year.
an annual subscription.
Okay. And those fees are going up, because it went up, you're going up in that line about, almost $11,000.
Yeah, so what we have in that line is we have about a $3,000 increase in the online library catalog maintenance subscription we pay every year.
Mhm.
We have, hold on one minute. Just let me get this, I want to be sure. In my budget narrative, I mentioned getting, being able to allocate $2,000 more for programming. So right now, we allocate about $30,000 for all our programming. We offered 1,700 programs last year, and we had about 40,000 people attend them, so we're getting a good rate of return on the money. I'd really like to do some more specialized programming, especially in the STEAM area of things for children, and also to build on our success with the job series and now moving into sort of a small business series and bringing some experts in, so that would be another $2. And then the rest is I wanted to transfer $5,000 from the library materials budget so we'd have more money in there in order to be able, there's a platform fee you pay for the digital books, the Overdrive. I wanted to move that into this because it is a software license of sorts, and then leave the rest of the library materials, the actual item purchases in the library materials line. So that's what we're hoping to do.
Okay. What is the, going to capital outlay? Explain to me, or I know you have you're a computer expert here. The online library catalog, this is a brand-new software system?
Not at all. It's
No.
about 7 years old. It would be new to us, but it's not new software.
Okay. So what are we paying for? Is this hardware and software? Or
No,
the
it's just software.
Just
It's
software?
all cloud-based.
It's all cloud-based? Okay, so we're moving our current catalog to the cloud, is that what you're saying?
No, this is just the catalog interface, so we would still house the systems ourselves, but this enterprise would be hosted by the vendor down in Atlanta, actually, and they would be responsible for the backups and all the hardware and all that kind of stuff. We just pay them a maintenance fee for the
Okay.
software.
Is this a one-time fee?
It's a one-time, and then there's an annual maintenance after that.
Okay, what's the annual maintenance? Because obviously we're buying the whole thing for
Yep.
whatever number of
The
years.
first year is $13,080. The second year is $6,130. The third year is $6,360.
Is the 13 part of the 20 here?
Yes.
Okay.
And what is the report package?
Analytics is, it's fairly new from Cersei Dynamics, but it actually is a combination of two of their older reporting systems that give you pretty much real-time statistics on anything that your system does. Again, it's cloud-based, so they host all the servers for that, so there's no maintenance other than software cost to us. And then we can use that to run more detailed reports than we can now and more easily than we can now. It's much more graphical than the text-based system we have now. So right now, if we want to run a report on something to get basic information, it takes a lot of time for someone to take that data out of the system and massage it into an Excel spreadsheet to make it something that we can actually utilize. So this system actually does that for you. It can create charts and graphs and PDFs that make it much easier to understand what we're looking at.
And once again, this is the cost for this year, or are there future
It's
costs?
$7,340 for the first year, and then the second year is $5,000, the third year is $5,200.
So we're going to be seeing those costs show up in this library capital outlay for
Right.
each of these years. What happens after 3 years?
It goes up about 3 to 7% every year. We were locked in for the first 3 years at 3.9%. So depending on how the economy is doing and how they want to raise it, if we decide not to use the software, we stop paying for it and we don't get that anymore. But if we continue to use it, it goes up about 3% every year.
And what were we using to do the analytics beforehand?
Right now, it comes with a reporting module. It's part of the system that we bought in 2000 or 2001. And it works, but it's very antiquated and old, and it slows the whole system down when we run reports. Some statistical reports take a lot of resources of the server. So we try to do them at night if we can, because it slows the whole system down. And again, it's just the ease of getting the information that we need out of the system and spending less time getting the information and more time analyzing it and figuring out what to do with it.
And I think better reporting and better information, because we'll be able to drill down to an individual patron, how, what materials they're using, demographic data, et cetera, and be able to really buy even more smartly than we do now. So we're looking forward to that.
Would we be able to get a report next year when this to see where this is all?
We get it, sure.
Okay, I mean, it might be handy to, if we're paying for it, to see it.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Mr. DeWitt.
To follow on Mr. Walsh's comments a little bit, when does something go from capital to fees and professional service as a license? Because these are really licenses, right? So so 13,000, so I get it, if it's a brand-new acquisition, I'm okay, capital. Next year, we won't see this under capital. We won't see either of these in capital next year, right? Because I thought you just said we would.
No.
No.
No, they'd become part of the operating line, they'd be in.
So fees, next year, these,
Yeah.
the support of these go into fees and professional services.
Along
Okay.
with fish tank cleaning.
Fish
Yes.
tank cleaning, I got that.
Very important.
Yes, I
Like
got
dead
that.
fish in the
Yeah.
children's library.
Mm,
Get
and
the
we
little
can-
mechanical fish.
Do we want to entertain, or we got to go revenue too, right? Yeah.
Correct. Are you done? You all set?
I'm all done till we get to revenue, yeah.
Okay, so let's look at
Yes,
the revenue line.
yes, I mean, these should be in fees and professional services.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. That's
I'm just
kind of where I
saying.
was headed.
What page on
It's
revenue?
nice to see the
We can
visibility,
talk
but
about the accounting for it later. 50?
At the top of the page.
Total library, 293,000. Sorry, 298,000. We're on page 50.
15?
50, 50. We have 3-year averages for 2 of them. We have a source document, library invested funds, Mr. Mayor. Please talk about that a little bit. It's consistent with prior years. Is that the interest from the,
Yes. On the schedule,
so that's the earnings?
yes.
And then the department estimates on the other fees. Do I have any questions on those estimates? They seem to be in line with prior years. Any questions on revenue for the library? Mr. DeWitt?
thank you. Are the Pequot Library fines, I'm assuming they collect fines, in your line item?
No,
Where is that revenue?
I have no idea.
That's part of their budget.
Their budget, that's not our budget.
So they don't report fines to us.
Nope.
There's the only one line item. So they don't report fines to us, nor do they give the fines back to the library. Okay?
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure these are fines. Aren't these book rentals?
Well,
Or-
I don't know which one you're looking at.
I know what it says, but there's...
$92,508
Right,
of
but
fines.
there's 0 under the book rental fee line, so I'm wondering about about the accounting.
The book rental fee is a archaic way of really categorizing a different kind of fine, which is for the express books, you're allowed to have them for 1 week, and then after that, you get fined for 20 cents a day, versus the other books that are 15 cents a day. So for some reason, in days of yore, they call them rentals, but it's really just a
Gotcha.
different fine structure, so they're going to be folded into the library fines going forward.
Got it. So now, earlier when we were talking about a revolving fund, if I may go there, these are the amounts that you're saying you would want to put in the revolving fund?
The fines, right?
But, I mean, it seems to me, I mean, revolving funds obviously all take work and they'll take process. I mean, it's like, so if you take the fine money and put it into that's in a revolving fund for the library to spend, that's increasing the library budget, and then you have to increase the tax rate to compensate for that, because this is a revenue item that comes in on the top. So, I mean,
Assuming you offset it, you don't.
yeah, I mean, it's so I guess my question would be why? I mean, you do the budget every year, and,
Well,
It'd be a good discussion to follow up after the budget cycle.
but, I would think they would be more diligent about collecting the fines if it's going to go back to them, and then it would be a way of replenishing their materials. So I would think
yeah.
it would help. Their materials line is subject to be cut all the time, so.
I mean, I mean, I think when someone comes, I mean, I don't know, could you collect fines more diligently?
It's really, we're not going to force anyone to pay a fine unless it's over $50 and then they can't take anything out. But we can't really force them. We encourage them to pay their fines, absolutely.
You don't have a library cop?
No. You can put one in my
Bookman.
budget.
Bookman.
Bring him out of retirement.
Yeah.
Put him to work.
You can do that, Stone.
The real estate thing doesn't work out.
100, yeah. No, my point is $102,000 is not exactly chump change if you're really collecting those fines. And maybe
Are
Pequot's
really
not.
collecting those
Well, yeah,
fines.
so, I mean, Pequot doesn't have the volume you do maybe, but even if it's half of that, that's not.
No, our circulation's almost $1 million, or $1 million, I wish it was. A million circs a year, so you're seeing about a tenth of that being fined. That's nice. Boy,
Yeah.
I'd love that in my library.
That's a lot of 15 cents, boy.
It is.
Okay,
Dave says he contributes to that a lot.
all right.
Yeah, it's pretty bad in my house. I'll admit it.
We like you for that.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, we'll go to the public, and this is public comment, not questions. So this is public comment. If you do come up to one of the microphones, if one of you ladies would give them one of your microphones, I need your name, your address, and again, we're going to, just a couple of minutes if you don't mind. So thank you very much. Come right up.
Thank you.
Come right up. Thank you. And to my colleagues on the board, I have gotten several texts tonight that say that our viewing public at home is having problems hearing us. So that the volume isn't too good, so if we could make sure we speak into the microphones, as well as our speakers and presenters, too. So go right ahead.
Good evening. My name is Donna Woods-Orazio. I'm a volunteer at the library, as well as a member of the Friends of the Public Library. When you knock on the back door of somebody's house and you walk in with a bag of books from the public library, you get to know someone well. I'm very blessed that I am able to volunteer at the library, and one of the programs I'm part of and have been for almost a decade now is the homebound delivery. Some of you may not even know it exists, but the library provides books to people who are homebound. Homebound can be somebody who is not able to get out from their own home, or people who are in nursing homes. I just want to share with you one story, one woman, one patron. When I met her about 9 years ago, I would take her a green library bag, knock on her back door, into her kitchen, and we'd start talking. At that time, she took 10 books a month, 10 New York Times bestseller books. So we're, books, and she would read every one. Didn't always finish them, and then we'd have a debate about the writing or the characters or the author, but it was always engaging, and she looked forward to seeing me every Friday. The content of that bag has changed over the last couple of years. She has lost control over many things in her life, including her independence, her ability to get around, pretty much her ability to even walk now. But when I go into her room on a Friday, her face lights up because she's got a connection with our community. Long ago, she was interviewed by one of the reference librarians who put together a list of things of what was important to her. Poets that she liked, music that she liked. And now today, as I said, the content of the bag has changed. Last time I went, it contained, you were talking about materials and what is on the shelf at the public library. I bring her discs now of music. She can no longer hold a book, but she can listen to music. She can no longer read the print, even the large type is too difficult. So this month she's reading the architecture in France via a large coffee table book, and she's also looking at the landscape in Tuscany, again, through a large scape book. And when I read her the back of the CDs, because we That's what, she has like an old-fashioned plastic, inexpensive boombox thing that plays a CD. Nothing fancy, 1949. And as I read down the list of the bands and/or the songs, she knew most of them. And her face lit up. There were 4 selected for her, and she will play them over and over in the next month. At the bottom of the bag was a printed poem that I read to her that had been hand-selected by the reference librarian. So although, as I said, I'm lucky to be able to do this, but because of the diverse material collection which is kept at the library, here's a woman in her 90s who can still read. May not be conventional reading, it may not be the conventional use of a library, but it's one of the things that our public library, through the librarians, does so well. And I urge you to maintain the library budget as it is, even though it sounds old-fashioned, CDs and VHS tapes for patrons, for a certain number of people in our community. That is what they use. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Rousey.
Hi, I'm Michelle McCabe. I live at 1060 Merritt Street. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees at the library, but actually I would prefer to speak to you today as an avid patron of the library. I think that I probably have used every service just about that the library has to offer, including the fish tank, and contributing to the fines, unfortunately, but I do. The library is an enormous resource for this community, and part of what makes it such an amazing place is that it's a place of exploration, that a library is the only place that can happen in anymore. I have one child in particular, myself, that are avid readers. We check out a ridiculous amount of books, hence the fines. But it gives us the opportunity to try new things, music and movies and nonfiction and fiction, and you go to the library and you scan the shelves and you see, oh, the author has written these other books and I didn't know about them. One of my sons found one book that he liked and decided that this year for 7th grade he was going to read every nonfiction book that this author has written. The librarians are a huge resource. Nicole at the main library, the teen librarian, I don't know what I'd do without her as a mother of boys. It's hard to find good fiction. I can go in there and I will leave the library with a stack of books this big. It cultivates a love of learning that, truthfully, you cannot get in a bookstore. You cannot get streaming music on your own. You do those things anyway, but this is the opportunity to learn new things and take a risk. You might have heard of a musician that sounded intriguing. You go to the library, you try it out, you see what it's like, you share it with friends. This is the place where the community gathers, where people start talking about books. The circulation librarians to the research, all of them are so knowledgeable that you end up having a mini book club every time you go to check out a book. It's the pulse of this town. And the materials budget and the staffing budget is what makes it so incredibly special and valuable, that really you cannot get this experience anywhere else. And we should be so proud that our library is as elite and creative and progressive, with the DIY stuff going on at Woods and the STEM things that are going on at the main branch, and the way that they pull kids in. There's a kid who is a student at, I think it's at Ward, who's running an actual class with other children, teaching them, because that's what the library provides for this community. And so I urge you to support the budget, because the librarians spend it wisely and well to the benefit of the entire town, from young to old. So I hope that you will support it as it has been presented to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please.
Hi, my name's Bill Hopf. I am the president of the board of directors for the Friends of the Fairfield Public Library. I live at 285 Hemlock Hills Road North, Fairfield. My house is a little easy to spot because I think I'm the only Democrat in Greenfield Hill. Having sat through the...
So you're the one? No.
Yes.
Next.
Thank you. Time.
Is that how it is?
Right.
So, as I think most of you probably know, I hope you know, that Friends are a group of very dedicated volunteers for the library, and I have to say I'm inspired to offer to clean the fish tank at some point in the future. But
What line item is it?
want to relieve the line item. So I participated, I was invited to participate in I was one of the community members who participated in the long-range planning that the library recently started. And I will tell you that I think what is most important to me is I got to know the people who make up the librarians, the people who are the upper management of the library, because they were all there. And I will tell you that we have a group of innovative, dedicated, and very passionate people who are working for us as staff at the library. And I feel, having been to some conferences related to the Friends, so you people from around the state are at the same room, and I truly feel we have the best library going. I think that it's great to be on a winning team, and I think that that's what we have. And the strongest reason I feel for supporting the library budget is because I feel the people who are working there deserve to have what they are asking for, because it's what they feel they need to keep up with whatever it is they're keeping up with. I would like to keep them all. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily the result of cutting their budget, but I think that it matters that the community support their efforts. And they're asking primarily in the materials budget to get back to 2008. And my perspective is the overall budget increase is less than last year, so I'm hopeful that you folks will agree and keep it.
Thank you very much. Any other question or comments on this budget? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Seeing none, we'll come back to the board. Nothing from the board. We're done with the library budget. At this time, in deference to the hour and to the members of the public that are here, we got off to kind of a late start because of the IT budget. I'm going to ask my colleagues if they'd like to take the not-for-profits first. We can walk through those. I'll just call them out one at a time. We'll just walk through them, and then if there's any questions for any individual not-for-profits, we can ask them. And if not, if there's any comment from the public on them, we'll take those at the end. Is that okay with everybody? My advance apologies to the Parks and Recreation organization. I know I just lost every tea time for the next summer. It's the price I pay.
But at least it won't affect your score.
Oh, yeah, this is true. Think of all the money I've saved and all the pigeons and everything else that were just saved. Page 131. So, and thank you to the Park and Recreation organization for your patience. Page 131. Okay, we're just going to call these out one at a time. First of all, before I get started, are there any questions related to the not-for-profits segment of our budget as a whole? Mr. DeWitt.
Just one quick question to the First Selectman. It's been 2 years since my committee made a recommendation on not-for-profits, and we haven't heard if there were any changes made to the process. So I'm curious what process went into this budget book, and can we expect to hear the results of our recommendations?
Well, it's a very direct question in some respects. The Board of Selectmen overall was not, I don't know how to say this.
Enamored?
Okay, I was trying to look for the right word. With the report or the recommendations. What we've tried to do as I explained last year, since in the 4 years roughly the committee was in existence, the committee didn't take time to talk to the organizations here that are involved in this. In essence, and I think not-for-profits is the wrong term. These are really organizations that we're paying for services for. They're providing services to our citizens. So step one last year was to sit down and meet with each one. And as I commented as they came up last year, was this first thing is establish that we had good value for the investment that we were making, that the services provided were going to Fairfield residents, and it was helping our town. So that was step one. Went through again and met with each group again this year and talked about how those numbers were arrived at, how we got there, and talked about what we're looking for going forward. So first step was to establish value in each of those. Second is to look at what's the framework or basis for those fees, because in the future, theoretically, we need some framework for saying, do we ever increase these, or do we just keep them at this rate? Do we, are we paying comparable amounts to other towns, and how is their, what's their mechanism for looking at what other towns do? There are, as I count them up, 16 organizations. So it's not an overwhelming number. We don't have lots of churn. We don't have new folks coming in every year. So to sit down and look at that so we can arrive at what the formula is for how the town is being charged for these services, establish that it's both good value, that it's a fair and equitable way to do that, will then cut down on the amount of time we have to spend with them each year.
Okay. You've done a pretty good job of reiterating our recommendation to you from the committee. So you've sat with everyone except my committee.
Your committee came to the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
Made a full presentation to us.
That's right. So I thought we were going to hear some recommendation. I mean, we made recommendations to the Board of Selectmen, and one was that a process be put in place, as you mentioned, and we haven't heard. So that's my point. We can take it up some other time. I mean, I would still like to understand what your recommendation is. Obviously, you didn't like our recommendation, then you need to tell us that, and we'll disband, I guess.
Well, you're effectively terminated when you did your report, because that was the last step in the process. It was a Board of Selectmen committee. Second, I've reiterated this process 2 years in a row now in terms of the approach we're taking and how we're going through that.
Well, so I guess we're done.
You all set for
No,
now?
I guess I am.
Okay. You can, Mr.
Is
McCall.
this report that came out 2 years ago, is it somewhere where I can read it? Is it online somewhere?
Mr. Tetra.
It's out online, but it is a PowerPoint. I believe the chair of that committee
Oh,
might
it
have
was presented at the Board of Selectmen, so I'm sure it's on the record. It was given to the Board of Selectmen, it was given to the Board of Finance, and it was given to the RTM.
Mr. Mayor, can you have someone grab a copy of that and forward that around?
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions, comments on a global basis? Seeing none, let's go. We'll just do a page flip. I'm not going to ask the departments or the organizations to come forward. This is question and answer. We'll see if there's any questions from board members. If so, we'll stop and go through there. Mr. Tetro, very few changes in the funding as I flip through this, correct? Two, one up, one down.
two organizations, three organizations in that case. That was actually, all three were down from prior
But
year.
one was up.
Sullivan McKinney was up, but lower than, up over the historical number, lower than what they asked for last year. They're asking
Okay.
for an 88.
Now you sound like a government guy.
Improvement.
It's up, right?
I'm sorry, where do I work again?
You've been good at it.
I'm sorry, did you say I was good at it? I'm sorry, just checking.
Sounding like a government guy.
There's one organization that we're giving a few $1,000s to that I took it to zero, because in reviewing their other sources of funds, we were one of the few towns in the area that was contributing to them, and we talked through that, and they didn't have a good reason for why we should pay more than somebody else. So
And that's reflected in here?
yes.
Okay. So let's just,
There was another group, another organization that requested, I think, 10 grand that I took them back to the historical 8.
okay. Let's take a flip, okay? Okay, so RISAP, $15,000 last year, $15,000 this year. Questions? Okay. Seeing none. Pequot Library, $350,000 flat year over year. Questions? Seeing none. Yes, please, Ms. Marmion.
Is there somebody here from Pequot?
Please, come on up. I hope not. Good evening.
Good evening.
Please, I'm sorry, introduce yourself.
My name is Heather Marie Montilla. I'm the new director of Pequot Library. I started in October.
And welcome.
Thank you.
Go right ahead.
Thanks very much. I know that you're relatively new. I know that you've got new staff. There's been a good amount of turnover. I know that the Board of Directors as well, or Board of Trustees.
Board of Trustees.
Board of Trustees. There's also been a lot of change. I'm wondering, because Pequot pretty consistently, $350,000 per year, I'm wondering, because you've had so much change, if you're looking in the future, if you're looking at a strategic path that may be new, different, something you can share with us in terms of this contribution. Do you foresee this going forward forever and ever? Do you foresee raising additional funds or taking from your endowment to perhaps reduce this $350,000 request? I'm just trying to get an idea of the strategy for Pequot, because it is quite a large amount of money that the town has been giving you in the past, and what can we expect in the future?
Well, I am new, but what I would say is that in the short time I've been here, we have put many things in place that I think would make the investment from Fairfield Township to be worth its while, even more so than it's already been. We've been really looking at, in many ways, who we're serving, how we're serving, what we're doing, and even putting monetary values. So, for example, last year over the year before, we actually increased by 60% the attendance of our programs to 30,000 people. And during that time, we also increased offering programs from 400 to 500. Since I arrived in October, we've started a whole education initiative. And we had, in December, three schools from Fairfield attend. And in the next month, we'll have 5 schools. And why am I telling you all of that? Well, part of it is a strategy, a grander strategic plan, and a thinking. We started a management plan and a strategic planning process to kind of put some of these thoughts in place. Pequot Library is a tremendous, and as you know, I'm sure you know even more than I did 6 months ago, is a tremendous gem for this community. To have a place that has 3 amazing libraries, and all are unique and all are different, and what we are doing at Pequot Library isn't being done anywhere else. So the answer is, I hope we're not going to reduce that. In fact, I think you will see our value over time of how much we are doing for the community, especially for the children and the seniors and everyone in between in Fairfield. But I also think to match that, my plan is to raise more foundation, corporate, so you're bringing more money in, and that's more value for Fairfield. Does that answer it?
To a certain extent, and I agree, you bring tremendous value to the community. I guess what I'm looking for is there a definitive, is there a movement to create a plan that lays out things like getting grant requests together for funding, or for charging for certain programs, or for bringing in money, or I'm just trying to understand if perhaps if there is a plan that's in the works that you could present to the board so that we understand the financial kind of path that the library is on, so that we can anticipate, is this funding request going to be offset by additional fundraising opportunities that you're going to undertake in the future?
So already, since I arrived, we've actually submitted 4 grant proposals. And I know that some of them are actually coming in already. We were successful in getting a planning grant from the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development. And so it's obviously, all of you, I'm sure, know that grants take time to turn over, but I think that you have a community both around Pequot, and yes, there has been a lot of changeover, I guess, even since I came. We've had 3 staff members who have left, and 1 was on maternity leave. So since I arrived in October, there's been a tremendous amount of changeover, but having said that, we have strength among the board, and I think we've had more educational excitement at Pequot Library and more people. I mean, if you look back I invited all of you, I believe, to March 15th, and between March 15th and Saturday, we had 1,500 people come through our doors to over 23 programs. I mean, that's tremendous that we're offering that much to Fairfield members. So in terms of, yes, we certainly are looking to diversify funding. That's part of also reaching out to new board members, getting new people on board, diversifying our plan. I hope that the contribution that the town has given us, it has been, I think since the 50s, there has been a commitment there. And we were the first free library in this area. And we are there and here for the community. And, you know, I don't feel it, and maybe this is wrong of me, but I think it's not a bad thing that there are 3 amazing libraries in Fairfield. No one has the historic collection we have of early Americana. It is a tremendous treasure that, you know, part of our collection is at Beinecke Library because it's so important for scholars, but part of my goal is to bring that material alive to students, to adults, to everyone, and to excite people about what we have and make education not just what you do on your iPad, but touching something from the 1700s and getting excited about it. So the more we can do special and unique things that, frankly, no one else is doing with rare book material, the more I believe we'll be able to secure more money to do more for the town of Fairfield.
And again, I appreciate all that Pequot brings to this community, absolutely. I guess what I'm looking for is potentially, and it doesn't have to be right now, maybe in the future, if we could hear sort of the plan for the library. For example, the $350,000 request, what specifically would you be putting that towards?
I can certainly do that.
I
mean,
would
I
appreciate
can even
that.
tell you, I've started running. Basically, we looked at all of the programs, the 500 programs, and we put monetary values based on the going rate for things. And even if we just looked at our programs, we didn't look at our circulation or our reference, but just at our programs alone, we spent over $350. If you put a value of what it would cost, $10 for a free concert, or $25, depending on the caliber of that concert, we spent, the cost benefit was already over $350,000. So just alone, our 500 programs, if there were costs associated with that for the members of Fairfield, that alone, not counting all of the hours we're open to all of the exhibits, just that alone. And I have, this is my program, like the list of programs and the number of people who attended and whatnot. So if that is part of what you're looking for, but then we also have circulation. We have materials, new materials we're buying. One of the, I'm sure many of you have been to our book sale. We don't spend $50,000 on videos, because we actually, many times when people donate things to the book sale, we put them into our collection and put them into circulation. So that also means we probably don't have the latest, coolest videos because we have to wait for them to be donated, because we invest all of the money that we're buying actually in print materials or magazines, which is also print.
Okay, so, sorry. So if there's something in writing that you could share with us in terms of where you would, what you would, for the $350,000, what would you would allocate that funding for, that would be very helpful.
Sure.
And then the second thing that would be very helpful is, and again, it doesn't have to be right now, but if you're working on a strategic plan for your future, it would be great to share that, I think, with these bodies in terms of where you're going in
We
the
have
future.
seen such a document in the past, but I don't know whether it's been updated, and I'm not aware of all the changes on your board. So
Right.
you might
So
want to go back and
If you have an
revisit it.
existing one, or if you're planning on revising that, it'd be great.
Great.
I have Mr. Walsh, and then I'll go to Mr. Tetra.
Well, Ms. Barman raised some good questions, so, and then that raises a question. I'm going to ask the first selectman, since our clerk is not here. Can you find out from the library staff how many grants they have applied for? Because I presumed if you've applied for 4, and the budget on the library is so much larger, that we must be getting a lot more in grant revenue. And do we have any idea what we got brought in grant revenue for the year for the library? Do you have any idea, Linda, what we brought in for grant revenue for the year for our public library? If you can get that for us, that'd be great.
Well, Mr. Walsh, I think you asked two questions.
Sure.
First one was, how many grants did we apply for? Because
Yeah.
given we don't get every grant,
Yep.
and I know the library is very diligent about searching for those, it might be helpful to have that number also.
Yeah, and if they have a certain number that they're applying for and approximate values of those, that'd be great to know. If we got grant revenue in, would there be a line for that in the budget, showing that as revenue?
That would be a question for our CFO.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
You know, grants are another subject.
Bob? Bob, I think you need the mic.
Not all of our grants show up in the budget.
Right. So let's do this. Let's understand how many grants were applied for by the public library and what the dollar value of the grants were received, and whether or not the grants received are included in the budget or whether they're off-budget items that the library spends in addition to their operating budget to augment their collections. Can we just get that?
Talking about the town library?
Correct, not Pequot, the town library. Correct, Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions?
So for $350,000 that we would give you, we get an entire branch that the town of Fairfield can use, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And tell me about the old collection and how it's unique to what the town has. Is it completely different?
It's completely different. So when we were started in 1889, our founder, who basically built the library in secret and then revealed the library and tore down her house, everyone thought she was building a barn. She then went on for the next 30 years collecting early Americana, things that basically recorded the founding of this country. So we have everything from things from the 1400s to Christopher Columbus letter to, right now we have on view at Pequot Library 3 editions of Phyllis Wheatley's. Phyllis Wheatley was the first African-American female poet, published poet. And we have a copy of her book from 1773 signed. She came over on a slave ship when she was 8 years old, and before she was 20 was writing and had published a book. But we not only have 1773, which we own, we have 1786 and 1804, all in our collection, all on view. Right now, and let me see, and I left it at my seat. I'm sorry. We have a view. We also put up exhibits that highlight and bring to life our special collections and make it relevant. So right now, thank you. Right now we have it's Connections, Black Poets and Writers, American Visionaries, 1700s through present day, and we basically have one wall that basically what we're doing is we're taking the old material that's new and that's the old material and we're making it new and exciting. So yes, we have the things from 1700s, but then we have Frederick Douglass's books, his autobiography, the first edition of his autobiography. And then we contacted two children's book authors and illustrators, and we have a section of the exhibit that has books, 2 books on display about Frederick Douglass that utilize the books we have on display as their primary source material. Because we want to teach all kids of Fairfield about primary source material and why Wikipedia is not a source. It's a source, but it's about primary source material and that curiosity. I know when I was growing up, you had to go to a card catalog, to go to a book, to find maybe an article that was completely not relevant for what you were doing research on and start the process again. By showing them that this is a modern day explanation of Frederick Douglass, but it all starts with these old books from 1800, it's really a way to bring those books to life. And so that's what we're doing. We're trying to bring, sorry, just a side note about our collection. We have things from presidents. They took a big interest in collecting anything in not only genealogies, but also New England, the founding of laws, of township. We have a historical and genealogy collection. And it had been closed to the public, but going back to strategic plan, in the next 6 months, we'll be reopening it and inviting people to just spend time down there and browse books that are hundreds of years old. And just, it's tremendous and it's exciting. And we want to be a resource for everyone in Fairfield and beyond. But part of that is also us being able to raising money and spending money to bring these collections to life and make them relevant to our kids of today who, frankly, with their digital machine at 6 years old, might not have an interest for some of this. So how do we make it relevant? And that's our challenge. But your support helps us to get to how we overcome that challenge.
Thank you.
Okay. And all of your materials are available on the town's computerized catalog?
Not all of them. So we have books off-site in storage. Some of those books are noted and some are not. I don't know why that is. And one of my goals is to apply for grants that I can pay for an archivist and librarians to be able to kind of sort that out. Why are some on the town catalog and others aren't? In fact, some of our genealogy books downstairs, it's in our downstairs area, same thing. I don't know why, but Rome cannot be built in a day. Pequot Library certainly was not built in a day. And so what our aim is to develop a plan that we're developing and figure out how to make people more aware of what we have and get everything online so people are more aware. We've talked a little bit about digitalizing some of our material. It's a huge cost. There are grants out there, and we started looking into them as well. But there are 6 full-time staff members and 9 part-time staff members and 5 pages who are high school students of Fairfield high school students who work a few hours a week. So we don't have a big staff and we do an awful lot. And so as I'm saying everything we want to do, it's also we have to plan it out so we're successful because we want to do it the right way.
But members of the community that find something on the catalog can have a book delivered from your location and be delivered to Fairfield Woods, correct?
Yes, and same, our patrons borrow books. We're one card, one town, right? And I think that I had the privilege of meeting with Karen Ronald recently, and they are such a tremendous resource, and I'm thrilled that I'm part of a community that has us and has them, and we should stand together. We are stronger and are a greater resource for the town of Fairfield.
So for $350,000 we get, for our money, we get a branch library. The question then becomes, what does Fairfield Woods cost? And I thought we were supposed to have, and Bob's laughing, I don't think it's really funny, but you could laugh all you want, Bob, that this is for 2 straight years we asked that the Fairfield Woods Library be broken down into its own account codes, and it still has not been done. So it might be funny, we asked it the first year, it didn't get done. We made it a requirement last year, and here we are again.
I've asked for resources 2 straight years as well. When I have the resources and the time, I can get things done. I work 60 hours a week at least. Not going to work much more than that.
So I don't understand this. If our board asks for something from the Board of Finance for there to be a breakdown, it just goes on a wish list? Mike, how does this work? I mean, we've asked that the library be broken out for 2 straight years, Fairfield Woods.
It's very simple. It's time, work, and resources.
So the answer is no then from the administration?
The answer is it's on the list, and when we have the resources, we'll get to it.
And you'll let us know when that is, I guess, then?
You'd be the first.
Okay. Well, I guess we can, what? What did you say, Chris?
Mr. Chair, if we're going to allow that kind of comment to take place on this board, these are going to be some very long discussions. We talked when I first made my presentation about setting a standard for how the other boards look at this. And I'd ask you to keep your members, or remind your members that that is the conduct that we should be using.
Noted. But I'll also note that this was a formal request last year, and while on note Mr. Mayor's comments, there was no communication back to this board prior to this process that request had in essence been denied for whatever reason.
And if I might be clear, my comment was not directed at Mr. Walsh at all.
Nope, it was directed at Mr. DeWitt, I believe.
Yes.
That's okay. I noted it, and I made my own comment back.
The question is, how do we ask for something? We think we're going to get it for 2 straight years, and there's no communication from the administration that we're not going to get it until we get a budget book, and it's not in here. It's frustrating. There's no communication of, we've looked at it during the year, we don't have the funds, we don't have the personnel, we don't have this, we don't have that, we need to talk about it. It's just we arrive here the next year and it's the exact same thing. So either, I guess we have to look at your budget then, and if we think it's important enough, cut a position from someplace else and redivert those resources to, I guess, Bob, to show that we're making it a priority, or we're just not going to get it. I mean, that's one
Or
way to
you
handle
can
it, correct?
provide the resources that the finance department is asking for.
Okay. So if I cut a position someplace else and then I make a motion to add another person to Bob's staff, we might get it.
He does have a request. He does have one request in.
Okay, so if we add that position on, is this going to get done for next year?
I believe that would be a question for Mr. Mayor.
Because I didn't see that as part of the job description, which I guess I don't know. I don't see that as part of the job description that would happen.
A couple of comments, I guess, because this shouldn't be a contentious conversation.
It shouldn't be contentious, Bob, but the
Right, and
problem is
I'm
we keep coming here
Yeah,
and
I know,
asking for it.
but let's talk about this. I used to be on your board.
Mhm.
And I remember when I was on the board, the level of response the board got when it asked for things. And I can compare that level to the level of response today. And it is incredibly improved with less staff than there used to be. Right, as of right now, and for this year, you've gotten all but 2 of your requests already completely responded to. You'll get the final 2 tomorrow, other than the ones that you asked for today. The department works diligently and makes every effort to respond to every request. With respect to the specific one, which is probably the only outstanding one other than some of the things we were trying to do, like the 5-year plan and that kind of stuff. But that's not a specific request from the board. I will accept the responsibility for not communicating with you during the year. I remember there's a couple of times we started sitting down to talk about it and get started on it, and just other things come up, other things happen, and the resources just weren't there by the people that needed to do the work. The time wasn't there for the people who needed to do the work to get it done.
Okay.
But,
I'll tell you
we
what.
will work to do it. We'll work to do it if you don't fund the new position. But if you fund the new position, I'm pretty certain it would get done.
Tell you what, let's continue this conversation on Thursday night when it's just our board and when we don't have presentations on the agenda. Let's focus on the rest of the budget tonight. And we'll come back to this because it's a worthwhile discussion. Let's come back to it. Let's move on at this point, just on this one item, and we'll just go to the other items. Feel free.
I'm glad you're here. And I don't think anybody on this board doesn't believe Pequot Library has tremendous value to the town of Fairfield. I'm very thankful that there's new leadership there, to be honest with you, and I look forward to working with you over the next several years, hopefully. And I do agree that we need to have this conversation. I mean, I don't want to get into a position where we're pitting Fairfield Woods against Pequot or any other library. Because, Mr. Walsh, all due respect, your question, that was the tenor of your question when you asked it. I don't think you meant it, but that's the first thing I thought of. And I hope we don't get there.
Mr. Mottola, I'm going to let are you done? I'm sorry. I'm going to let Mr. Walsh respond if he wants, just because you directed at him to.
Well, Mr. Mottola, you have not been here very long. No, but you haven't been here when this has been going on, where people have tried to pull the funding from them and close down this branch.
I was on the RTM.
Yeah?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
when an RTM member in our harshest of fiscal times moved to cut $50,000 from the Pequot Library, then people like you were saying the sky was going to fall down because of that, when every other department in the town of Fairfield was getting slashed. So that's my point.
I'm going to go to Mr. Tetro, and then I'll go to Mr. Stone.
Thank you. I just want to take time to point out, since we're all here and talking about Pequot, that I'm thrilled with the efforts that Heather has led the library in. One, in expanding out to our schools and getting more of our community and school children involved in Pequot and the collections. And having had a chance to make a couple of visits recently to Pequot, I've been amazed. The books there are not just books. When she talks about historical books, they're treasured. Some are old and tattered, and some go back to the 1700s. And to look at how a book that was manufactured in the 1700s, the challenge of manufacturing a book back then, to hear about what went through in order to produce that book, to understand what was going on with the authors at that point. It's something where I take a new respect and appreciation for the treasure that's here in Fairfield. To look at the Indian portraits in the books that you invited me down to take a look at, truly works of art on each page that are not available, in some cases, anywhere else in the world. And to have that treasure here, I think that the challenge is letting our town know how special that is, what resources there, how much they can learn. So the fact that Pequot has a number of initiatives to bring our school children in, to show them what that is, to tie that into their curriculums, I think is just a phenomenal resource, and I want to thank you for your efforts in that regard.
Thank you.
We'll go to Mr. Stone.
I'm going to take mine offline.
Okay. Fair enough. Any other comments, questions, concerns on this? I want to address one thing to Mr. Walsh and Mr. Mottola before we move on. I understand how Mr. Mottola read Mr. Walsh's comments, but in fairness, over the last several years, one of the things that's been very interesting, one of the things that we've been interested in pushing, is this idea of a private-public partnership. We did that quite successfully a number of years ago with the Hoydens Hill softball fields, where we appropriated some funds to actually buy the land one year, to actually build some facilities and clean up the area another year, and worked along with the Girls Softball League, who actually put, as I remember, a substantial amount of money to use to fix it. And Pequot Libraries, as well as many of our not-for-profit partners tonight, are also examples of a public-private partnership that has worked really well. So I think it's incumbent upon us, as being financial stewards of the town, to understand what their budget is and how they're able to deliver their programs for that very special library versus how we're able to deliver the programs for our 2 libraries that are all publicly funded, but again, we have to make sure that they're very efficient as well. So I view it in a little bit of a different light, and that has been the request of the board over the last couple of years, is to break out the 2 libraries so we could actually evaluate them. And in efforts of full disclosure, I live a stone's throw away to Fairfield Woods Library. So I don't think this is an either-or, but I think it's a way to benchmark ourselves against ourselves and to make sure that we're providing the best of both in the most efficient manner. And that's the way I look at the idea. So I thank you for the discussion. We should continue it. And on Thursday night, I would like to explore further the challenges that Mr. Mayor might have in delivering this breakout, because I do think it's worthwhile for all of us. Okay?
Agree.
All right. So let's move on, if we might. And we're at Fairfield Counseling Services. And it's 175 last year and 175 this year. Questions, comments on this line item? Seeing none, we'll go to the Discovery Museum. $24,000 last year, $24,000 this year. Questions, comments? Seeing none, go to the Greater Bridgeport Regional Council. $18,053, and the request is flat again this year.
And, Mr. Chair,
Oh,
just to
I'm
point out
sorry.
that
My apologies. I misread that. It's 0. Why don't you like these guys?
it was, for anybody who missed the earlier comments when we covered planning and zoning, this item was moved to the Planning and Zoning Department. That's
see.
where it is in other towns, and that's really the function it fulfills
I
as
see.
a quasi-government agency.
Okay, so it's a shot at me for not being here the other night. I get it. Thank you.
No, I didn't notice you were missing. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
it's hard to believe. Irreplaceable. All right, Audubon Society, the next one. 15,000 last year, 15,000 this year. Questions, comments? Seeing none. Greater Bridgeport Transit Authority, 30,000 flat year over year. Questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none. Go to the Fairfield Museum and History Center, $50,000, and it's flat year over year. Comments, concerns? Okay, seeing none. We'll go to the Fairfield Veteran Advisory and Information Services, $3,400, $3,420, year after year. Questions, comments? Seeing none. Go to Southwestern Connecticut EMS Council. We have $3,000, and this one is zeroed out. Mr. Tetra.
Correct. This is the one I mentioned earlier, where we looked at what other sources of funding they had, and it turned out we were one of the few municipalities that was contributing, and it didn't seem to make sense for us to contribute if everybody else wasn't.
And they've been notified of this termination of the fund?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Oh, yes. Okay. Moving right along. Questions. Mr. DeWitt.
So will they consider to be, will they be able to initiate a request every year still, or does termination this year mean you can't ask any longer?
I guess they could ask again as much as anybody could, and as much as any of the other organizations could ask for an increase at some point. At this point, I'm looking at this as pay for services, as we talked about, and the question becomes what services you're providing and how are residents benefiting from that. So if they have a better answer to that, certainly, but right now, the way their service works, it doesn't appear that we need to pay for it.
I appreciate the fact you took them off. I just want to understand what the process is.
Yep.
I don't know if zeroing out this year means that we'll never see this in the budget book again. Will there be zeros for the next 10 years, or will it just come out of the budget book forever?
If I understand the way our history works, it will probably stay in for the next few years to track the historical issue.
Okay.
Okay. We'll go to the Southwest Regional Mental Health Board. The request is flat year over year at $9,475. Questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none. Go to the Janus Center for Youth in Crisis. $5,000 was requested, $5,000 was last year. It is recommended by the First Selectman at $2,000. Mr. Tetra.
Again, in talking through them, how they charge other communities and how other communities kind of pay for their service, we readjusted ours to a town that was comparable like Stratford. And there wasn't a great explanation on why we should pay more than Stratford. That seemed to be a better approach at this point.
And they've been obviously notified and those discussions took place. Okay? Questions, comments from board members on this item? Seeing none, we'll go to Grashmere by the Sea. $65,000, and this is flat year over year. Questions, comments, concerns? None. Okay. We'll go to Sullivan McKinney Elder Housing. The budget last year was $11,783. This year, the department quote-unquote request, and the First Selectman is approved, is $5,985. Mr. Tetra?
Simply, historically, they've asked for lower than that. The last 2 years, it's been different because of very specific capital improvement projects. Last year was had to do with an elevator.
Elevator, right.
This year has ADA requirements they're trying to address. So they're very diligent in terms of how they use that funding and what they're trying to do with it.
Okay, questions? Seeing none, we'll go to the Kennedy Center. This is $7,000 last year, $8,000 requested, knocked back to $7,000. Mr. Tetra, you want to address?
Yes, we're working with them. We get a great value from the Kennedy Center.
Okay.
The question then becomes, and over time, I have no doubts that we need to look at how we increase that. My question to them is, give us a formula, give us an explanation for how that works, what we're paying for, how that fits into your funding plan, and on what basis that we would increase that over time. Even if we said no this year, if it's 5 years from now, are you still getting the same amount? How do we model that, and how do we know when we need to pay you more?
Okay. Questions?
Are other communities giving about the same amount?
I'm going to say yes, roughly. There's some differences between communities, and that's part of what I'm trying to get them to explain or have a model for, if you will. So we know that there might be different number between us and Trumbull. Now, is that based on population? Is that based on services provided? Is that based on, how do we come back to that? So even if we say no today, I still want to leave open the fact that at some point costs go up, our citizens are getting more service. 20 years from now, we're not planning on having the same numbers in this book. How do we look towards that? How do we look towards the future?
Great, thank you.
In some cases, that comes down to they may be able to get more out of other communities if they do this right and take some of the pressure off the funding they need from us.
Okay. Questions, comments from board members? We'll come back for public comment. Okay. Mill River Wetland Committee, and this is $5,000. And it's flat year over year. Questions, comments, concerns? Ms. Marmion,
Is there somebody here from Mill River?
please come on up. Thank you very much for being here. Apologies for the lateness of the hour. But at least you're not the Parks and Recs guys. I'm only.
Business can't be helped, so what happens. My name is Charlene Braun-Schindler. I'm from 159 Tamor Drive, Fairfield, Connecticut. I'm the president of the board of MRWC. Question?
Yeah, my question is, I know that Mill River, it's part of our science curriculum in the elementary and the middle schools, and there's been some discussion of whether or not this would actually be best, the budget line would best be moved into the Board of Ed budget somehow. And I'm just wondering if you can give us an update on where those discussions are, or if they're nowhere. et cetera?
Okay, we are in the public school system, but we are not part of the public school system. We keep that totally separate. Anything that, the money that we do get from the public school systems are for what they are buying from us, like the books, the program, and for part of the study trips. And other than that, we are totally funded by ourselves.
And I know that there are many parent volunteers who contribute. So there have been no discussions to move any of this budget into the actual Board of Ed budget?
No, I don't think it would be beneficial at all. We don't consider ourselves the school system. We're like another program that they procure for science. Any other, we just happen to be in Fairfield, Connecticut. And this is a program that they have as part of their science curriculum.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Does that satisfy your answer?
Questions, comments, anybody else? All right, we'll move on. Pilot House, thank you very much.
I'm going to leave this for everybody. Okay.
Absolutely, if you leave it with our clerk, that'd be great, thank you. The Pilot House is, the budget last year was $8,000, the request was $10,000, the first selectman recommends $8,000. Do you want to speak to that, Mr. Tetra?
Same rationale. We're looking for a model or formula in terms of how to adjust that in the future. And so that was one of the items we identified for them to come back with next year.
Okay. It was reduced back to the original funding level of $8,000.
I just didn't hear what the first selectman said you wanted them to come back with. I didn't hear that.
With a model or formula in terms of what we're getting for $8,000 and what the basis for increasing that would be. So there's an understanding on this side in terms of, is that due to cost increases, service expansion, what it is over time. I think in many of these cases, our citizens will be getting more services, so there could be a very good rationale for expanding that. Just want to make sure it's based on an objective criteria for doing that.
You good, Mr. DeWitt?
Yep.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, seeing none, we'll go to the Center for Family Justice, which is $6,100, and the request and the recommendation is flat year over year. Questions, comments on this budget? All right, now, to keep me honest, Mrs. Gardner, that's it, correct, on these? Okay, so what we'll do is, it's not incumbent on anybody to come up and speak, but for those of you who would like to come up and speak, please, your name, your address, and your affiliation with whatever organization that you'd like to speak to. And I'd ask you to keep your remarks brief, but please, we want to hear from you, and thank you very much. Come up to the table. Thank you.
Well, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I'm Misty Byer. I'm Executive Program Director for Music for Youth, and we are a program that has been utilizing the beautiful auditorium at Pequot for over 20 years. We have brought free concerts to children, youth, that involve internationally acclaimed artists, and we also use local talent as well. Pequot is a very different space, and it's a very different place, and it is very much a gem in Southport. Heather's doing a wonderful job actually exposing some of the gifts that Pequot has, and we've done a big job getting sponsors for our program. We actually have people that pay for these artists to come in so that this is no cost to the town, but we couldn't afford to do what we do, and we couldn't do it in the way that we do without the access to the auditorium at Pequot. It's just an incredible space and a place. It's just a program that really exists nowhere around the country. And we, as I said before, bring concerts that bring in probably about 200 people every month to this space, all ages, all types. So it's just it's just something that doesn't exist anywhere else. So I think it is important to look at the different resources that each of these libraries do bring to the community. But I'm very impressed at what's been going on at Pequot this past year, and I'm very excited about the future. And we are looking at grants and actually expanding our presentation programs, and we've started getting the a youth showcase series, so that now we're getting the high school students actually to get into the library and have a connection. So it's very exciting.
Thank you.
I think that's enough.
Anyone else? Thank you very much. Please, you can come on up as well.
I'm Lynn Van Winkle. I'm a resident of 80 Ironside Road in Fairfield, and I'm a volunteer at the Pequot Library. I also attend a lot of other events at the other libraries, so I want to support all of our libraries. Pequot Library, a privilege for the rich? Yes and no. It's located in Southport, a wealthy enclave, and the building itself is a historic treasure. But the real beauty of the library is that it is free and open to all who wish to come, to read, to learn, to engage. It is one of the few places left where even a penniless individual can come and be exposed to a wealth of knowledge. It's a community gathering place, from tiny tots at storytime to octogenarians at musical performances, high school artists displaying their artwork, and retirees at Meet the Author events. The library provides space for interaction and community. The number of events that Pequot puts on is overwhelming, and attendance is always strong. There's always something new and exciting going on there. It's not just a place to borrow books. It's an irreplaceable community service for everyone in Fairfield and beyond. So please support the Pequot Library.
Thank you very much. Ma'am.
Hi. Is
Hello.
anyone as tired as I am?
No.
Thank you very much for your support. My name is Tina Varick. I'm from the Kennedy Center, and I just wanted to add a couple of things and make and also ask maybe for a little clarification. There was a statement about the other towns that provide service, that help support our services, and the city of Bridgeport, over the last 3 years, has provided like 134,000 in support for our residential homes. Now, we understand they have the resource because they get those CDBG dollars that makes it allowable. The town of Milford provides us free space at the Margaret Egan Center that we otherwise would not be able to attain, which is like $20,000 worth of in-kind, well, for lack of a better word, in resources. The town of Trumbull likewise gives us just a little under 20. Now, when I'm out as a director of grants and projects for the agency, when I'm looking for resources, I have to consider what's available, what the need is, and what the probability of how we're going to be able to make a good ask for a grant. So that's just the lead up, just to give you a little bit of a comparison. And the Kennedy Center, like a lot of nonprofit service providers, especially for disabilities and special needs, we're primarily funded by the state of Connecticut. You may or may not be familiar with what's going on right now with the budget cuts, but the budget cuts for nonprofit providers right now is so severe that many of these nonprofits have actually closed their doors, and so we are basically pinching pennies and trying to find every way to ensure that individuals with disabilities continue to have what they need. I have a particular soft spot. Yes, I think the most vulnerable citizens in our communities should be provided for. And other than people with disabilities, I really don't see anybody being quite as vulnerable. With these cuts, I personally think that it's horrendous. And so I'm left looking every day according, of course, the staff and the executive director, but this is my focus on a daily basis to make sure that I can get, if I can get $50 more here, if I can get $1,000 more here, if I can get $20 more here, that adds up, and it makes a difference in terms of the quality of services that we're able to provide as the state steadily cuts our service, what we are paid in terms of fees, and yet the need for services continues to increase readily. I hope that you've seen the paperwork, and I know you did, where we're serving 133 people, and we're providing a number of services from the spectrum. We serve children that are in the Birth to 3 program all the way to seniors. That's our target areas for the Kennedy Center. So I look forward to finding a good model for next year that will give you what you need in terms of representation for how we can look at possibly increasing for next year. And I'm appreciative for the consideration for us again for this year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for staying. Any other comments on this section of our budget? Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Nick Morello, 85 Cider Mill Lane. I'm the Executive Vice President of the Pequot Library Board of Trustees. Just wanted to thank the Board of Finance for, all the work that you do. I know it's a late hour, and, Pequot has always had a tremendous relationship with the town of Fairfield and partnership. And, this is something that we rely on your money to open our doors and keep offering the services that we do on a daily basis. And we're being very aggressive this year in terms of trying to find additional funding sources in order to leverage the investment that the town has made. So our anticipation going forward, as we're doing long-term strategic planning, is that you're going to be there by our side, and the commitment that we've traditionally had is the $350,000, and we hope that continues in the future, because the sources that we're going out to seek in terms of additional revenue, they're going to be looking at that as well. So if they see a reduction, that's going to give them pause and question. And there's no doubt in my mind that any additional monies that do come in, that's going to be redeployed back into the community in terms of additional programming and opportunities. So I just wanted to make that point. We're still in the strategic planning process with Heather, who came on board in October. We are thrilled to have her. We went through a fairly long and robust search process, and we were fortunate that our old executive director stayed on and through the transition period. So
Well, passed.
So we're very excited. And as far as the board turnover, we have term limits, two true term limits. So that was normal and customary, and we have new board members that have come on, and they've all been involved in Pequot as volunteers. That's typically one of our criteria, is that we pull from our strong pool of volunteers who are looking to sort of step up their commitment and effort to give back to Pequot. And I think that's the other special thing about Pequot that sets us apart, is that without our volunteers, as well as without the town support, we would be nowhere. I mean, we have people that are in there round the clock sorting books for our annual book sale, pricing them. We actually now have an online presence. We have an Amazon.com store where we're helping sell some books online as well, and these people aren't getting paid any money. It's just their joy and support of books and learning. And it takes a village, and we have a village from all walks of life that come in every day to help us out.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Seeing none, we're going to close this portion of the budget review. I thank you all for coming out tonight. I appreciate the good work you're all doing with your organizations, and thank you for your patience in going through this process with us. I'm going to ask for a 5-minute recess, and then we're going to continue on with the rest of our program. So. Session, and the Parks and Rec budget is now before us. Are you all set, members of the okay, thank you. We're going to go to page 51, which is the revenue side of not just Parks and Rec, but it's our revenue section. But let's go to page 51.
They want to do the revenue first, huh?
There you go. Got to do the black first.
No.
The money in the black. All right.
I handed to you this evening the profit and loss statements.
Now, did you just leave it at our?
Yes. It was clipped together.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, it had the, all the budgets, as
Yep.
well as the revolving fund that I share with you each year.
Yeah.
Okay?
And this ties, this schedule for 2016 ties to the budget book, correct?
Yes.
So we can look, so you're directing us to look at this schedule.
I think it might be easier for you.
Perfect. Does anybody have a problem with that? Nope. Okay.
Because then it shows
Go right ahead.
program. With the Penfield complex, basically, as you know, we haven't been open, but we intend to be open in May. That's the tentative date. The changing rooms, the money would be coming in, so we're anticipating $38,000. We don't anticipate having daily lockers, or if we do, we may not be. I'm not sure how we're going to be, whether we're going to be selling them or not, so I left it as 0. Boat racks, that's a customary item, and that's status quo. Concession fee, that would be the first, if we open in May, that would be the first half of the amount due for this fiscal year. Jackie Durrell, that counts for the number of rentals anticipated. And as you can see, it's fairly common across the years. And Penfield 1, 9250, I'm anticipating about 10 rentals. And that's, you know, that's strictly a guesswork at this time.
And that's May and June of 2016.
Right. And I'm not even sure if I'll make that, but
Question, why are we estimating 50,000 this year? Is this just the budget number that hasn't been updated?
correct. I didn't, this was what I had estimated, but in our quarterly reports that I've shared with you, I said that we're not, but we had
Okay.
anticipated. Remember, we thought we'd be open by now. So therefore, our total revenue is anticipated to be 195,750. Our expenses, which we'll share in a moment, is 90,864 for net income of budget, and that's just expenses to income, of 104,886. And then we share the bonding cost of 324,341 for business loss of 219,455.
Okay.
Parks and Rec, these are program fees that go into the general funds. The tennis center fees, we've really moved down, I moved into the tennis concessions because the concessionaire runs both the summer and winter, so I combined them. We see an increase, we also increased our rates for tennis, for swimming, so we're anticipating about $10,000. I know it shows less than what we anticipated this year, but that's what we're estimating it at. The recreation programs was $50,000, and as you'll see in the revolving account, we have deposited more than that this fiscal year, but we are budgeting for $50,000 for the next fiscal year. The tennis is the summer and winter fee for the rental of the facility. Rental of facilities, those are all the camps that utilize our facilities throughout the summer and spring months. And miscellaneous parks, those were like when people rent picnic tables, et cetera, for different events throughout the town. Total revenue of 195,500. The expenses is 697,545. Now, this is the Parks and Recreation operations budget, which is really the administration end of it, which is all the full-time salaries, which covers all the other entities that we're going to be discussing this evening. We show the expense of that. I also include the healthcare cost for the full-time employees in there. They're in the other, as I've shown you in the past, they're in the other years because they were always in our budgets. Now they're separated, as you know. So net income budget, it's a $621,411 loss, both business and income. On the waterfront side, we're anticipating $730,000 in beach stickers.
Why the increase over this year?
Our fees have gone up on the non-residents. Let me just get, I have that here. Yeah, we're anticipating fee increase, or we did increase. We're expecting more people to buy because of the daily passes. Went up on the daily parking. We're anticipating more people buying the season pass. We also are no longer giving free stickers to the marina people. They usually got an A sticker with their boat slip. They're getting an M sticker, which is only good for the marina. And the catamarans and all those things on the beach, they will pay for the A sticker. So we're anticipating a slight increase in that.
You still get into the marina with using an A sticker, though?
Yes, you can get in with an A sticker. The M sticker gives them, what we did was the commission, listening to the marina manager and the boaters, they're getting, I'll say, privileged parking. They're getting it closer to the docks, which is M. So with an M sticker, they can park there. We don't have enough parking right next to the marina for everybody, so it's still a first come, first serve thing. Daily parking, I'm anticipating a decrease, and I think I've explained this many times during the Penfield discussions, that I see a decrease right now with the Penfield not being open, the increase of the $50 a day parking on weekends. We're anticipating a decrease there. We're basically staying status quo on the marina dockage and the winter storage and the concessions. Total revenue of 1,543,000, expenses of 426,411 for a net budget of 1,116,589. And if you want me to do the golf, or okay.
Please, why don't we just go through, is
Okay.
everybody good at just going through these pages, and then we'll go to the budget book itself? Yeah.
Can we come back to it? Okay.
You're on a roll, so we don't want to...
Don't want to stop me. I said I'd be, oh, Linda, I'm sorry. Thought we got here by 10 of. Smith Richardson, we're anticipating a decrease in what we projected this year. Our season passes, we're anticipating a little bit more of 51,000 over the 48, because we're just about there now, you know, or what we brought in last year. IDs, 173,000. That was a little bit lower than what we brought in, and it's all weather related. We got a late start last year. We're going to, end this year. Locker rentals, status quo, 2,500 basically, of what we brought in over years past. Greens fees, basically it's just about an average of what we brought in over the past. We're not going to hit the $1,040,000 that we anticipated, but I believe we'll be closer to the $1 million mark this year. Driving range, virtually that stays status quo, 140,000. Cart rentals, 280,000. Concession fees of 38,000, and this is the last year of that contract. Total revenues of 1,684,550. Our anticipated expenses are 1,454,808. You add in the health insurance, it's 119,366 for a net income budget of 110,376. You add the bonding that we pay for, try to offset, of $20,000 this year. Unemployment cost of $17,400, and we show an income of $72,976. On the par 3,
I don't think you have to go line item by line item.
okay, it's $287,500 in revenue. Our expenses are projected to be $288,383. Health insurance of $19,894. We're showing a $20,000 loss. Unemployment cost of $17,573, and we show a business loss of $38,350. If you look at all of our budgets together, our total revenue is $3,906,000. Our expenses in the budget are $2,958,000. Health insurance costs are $258,000. Net income to the budget is $689,663. After the bonding and after unemployment costs, we return to the town through all of our programs and amenities of $310,349.
Okay. The next page is our program by program.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that one. This is the revolving account. This is the, we start the year at, these are all the programs that we run. A lot of them are outsourced programs, as I've shown you in the past. And basically what we did was, we had a starting balance of $200,000. Our income is $1,217,117. Our expenses are $1,216,000. And we had returned, you see under miscellaneous expenses in red on the second page of $73,000. That is what we returned. That's what would have been over the $200,000 that we give back to the town each year. So we budgeted 50, and we ended up giving you $23,000 more. And really, I owe you $222 to balance it out, but I didn't think you'd hold me to it.
So, Mr. Lombardo.
Cash.
Mr. Lombardo, these accounts all tie back to the financial system, so
Yes.
these are all done in concert with the finance department.
Correct, and I worked with Caitlin on putting it together. and-
So the upshot is, before bonding, you return almost $650,000 to the town, and the bonding premiums are $345,000 for a net income for your business, which is Parks and Recreation, all in about $300,000 a year.
That is correct.
And the vast majority of that, just to lay it out there, is the beachfront.
Yes,
But that's because, if I heard you correctly, the Park and Recreation line item, which is strongly negative at 621, includes all your overhead.
that is correct.
And then the golf venues are essentially a break-even proposition. They return about $40,000 to the town after taking into account the bond amortization. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
All right. So before we go on to the budgets themselves, thank you, by the way. You developed this a couple of years ago, and I find it's very, very useful. So I appreciate that. And I hope you actually use it to manage the business and look at programs that are losing money and
No, and we're getting better at it. We're not losing money on the programs, I can assure you that. And that, it helps us promote other programs and offer scholarships and other programs that we do lose money on, because we anticipate that.
Now, to be fair, though, there's costs that DPW incurs on maintenance of fields and facilities that you use that are not included in these costs, right?
That is correct.
Okay, I just want to lay that out there because I remember that from their
No,
presentation.
but we work, and through DPW's discussions with you at the budget time, we do work with youth leagues, trying to help them offset the cost of our maintenance on fields and things of that nature.
Great.
So, and we're getting, we're trying to even move further along on that avenue.
Great. Thank you.
Well, some of that is in the revolving account, though.
Some.
Right.
Yeah.
But not all, right.
Well, of the profit?
There's some field improvements in your revolving account, but the
Yes.
labor that DPW comes out and does anything for you, that's not accounted for in
That
here.
is
That's what
correct.
you mean, right? Yeah.
The things that you see in the revolving account is if we, when we help offset building a new facility,
Mhm.
or if we realize we need a new backstop or something like that.
Right.
Then, and if we have it, we try to promote it out of here. We try
Right.
not to hit.
It's all physical, not, and no labor, like DPW would be almost exclusively labor, right?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Questions? Before we go on, let's stay to these schedules, and then we can go look at the departments as a whole. Mr. Walsh?
In the revolving fund, Jerry, those credit card fees get kind of high, huh? 128,000?
Yes.
Is that from everybody signing up online, through all your programs and?
Exactly.
Okay.
And down the road, we'll be looking at a new system, because right now, we'll probably end up going back to where we put our own credit card and work on just a flat 2.5% to 3%.
Do you charge more for people that pay via credit
No.
card?
No. The way the system is that we're using now, if we charge more, they pay,
The fee goes higher.
They take more off the top.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And when, as you recall, when we first introduced the system, we talked about, putting a service fee on there, and we felt that people wouldn't take advantage of it because it was relatively new, and I think it'd be very difficult to add that service fee now that people are used to not paying it.
The concession income from the Penfield complex, you believe that's an achievable number based on the new facility opening and everything else like that?
Oh, yeah, because that's part of the contract. When the gentleman that was there, I reserved to hold his contract. Okay? And that's what he will be paying. He'll be paying, I think it comes to $47,000, $23,500 and $23,500. So he'll pay $23,500 on May 1, and then July 1, he'll pay the other.
So he's paying $47,000 just to have the right to be able to use it?
Yes.
Even though he has no income coming in?
Well, he won't pay it until next May.
Okay.
So that's just
Next
the
May.
portion of May and June of
Yeah.
next year.
It's May.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, yeah, he doesn't pay until we open.
All right. That's it.
Questions on these schedules themselves? Okay, seeing none. I would assume there's no questions on revenue, given the revenue we just discussed, and he walked it down, but I don't want to make an assumption. You know what that does. Okay, if none, we'll go to the departmental budgets themselves and just take a look, okay? We'll start with page 285, Parks
Okay,
and
and
Recs.
I have to apologize. I wanted to introduce Brian Nareau. He's the chairman of the Parks and Recreation Commission.
Brian, thank you for being here.
Thanks for
And
coming.
my apologies for
I didn't
late.
expect him to be here quite this late.
Okay, so neither did we. Page 285, Department 7050, Parks and Recreation. Questions, comments on line items from board members, please? Looks like the only increase here is really in salaries,
That is correct.
and this is the adjustment mostly of contracts, correct?
That is correct.
No new headcount. Questions, comments, concerns on Park and Rec budget? Seeing none, that's okay. Questions, comments from the public? Back to the board, none. We'll go to the waterfront and marina, 7070, which the numbers are on page 288.
This, if I may?
Please.
Okay, the increase is really in seasonal payroll.
Yep.
Of $28,000. The reason for this increase is Approximately $20,000 is due to the minimum wage increase. And about 2% or $7,000 is related to increasing the total pay scale for the lifeguards and the beach captains and everybody else. I am going to be bringing the lifeguards to a starting wage this year of $9.85, which is still a little below market, but minimum wage again goes up to $10.60 in the year January of 2016. So I'm trying to get this group of people ahead of the curve because they should be my highest paid summer employees, and eventually I'll have them up higher. But I felt that it was important to move it this year and move the whole scale. The other increase or decrease is printing and binding. We reduced it by $4,000. We're getting a much better handle on the sticker cost for the beach stickers, and that's basically what it's used. And we're right there on target at $11,000. And I increased the travel and meeting for the supervisors that go from beach to beach for their mileage.
Questions, comments, board members? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to the next one, and I know I'm taking a little out of order from our sheet. I'm going in order of the book. We have the Carl Dickman Golf Course 7111, and that's budget's number 290.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to have Peter Grace and Ryan Morris, the chairman of the Golf Commission, because this group will be presenting the budgets to the RTM in 2 weeks.
Nice.
Unfortunately,
Looking forward to
I
that,
won't be
Peter?
able to attend.
I'm looking forward to bed. You look good in a tie, man. You look good in a tie. I like it.
There's snow on the ground. You got nothing to do. You're like hibernating for the last few months. Don't give us that you're tired stuff.
The Carl Dickman budget increase is primarily due to a capital equipment, capital outlay replacement. We didn't have anything last year. We're asking for $34,000 this year for a greens mower.
28,000.
What did I look at? Oh, I'm sorry. I looked at the other. I should put my glasses on.
Go ahead. Do you want to talk about this a little bit? It's an old.
I'm going to let Peter handle it.
Go ahead.
We'll take the 34.
Yeah.
It's just an old machine. It's broken down. There's no useful life left in it. It's going to cost too much to repair. And the greens mower is the bread and butter of taking care of the greens down there. So we're requesting a $28,000 greens mower.
So only one mower?
One more. Much like we did a couple years ago up at Smith's, we got a new greens mower.
Ms. Marmion.
So you also list here the estimated cost to repair or rebuild. The current motor is $17,000. You can get the parts. You can repair it. Assuming it includes the cost of whomever would do that work. You're including that as sort of to give us some perspective. Are you arguing strongly against repairing it versus buying
I'm
a new
arguing
one?
strongly against repairing it because right now, because some of the parts are obsolete, there's no chance we're going to get them anyway. And if we do get, I don't know if you read that right or if that was written right.
It says
but
provided parts are available.
Provided they
If
are
they are
available.
Oh, provided the
If
parts
they
are
are
available.
available. If they're
I understand. Okay, thank you. So we're not sure if these parts are in fact available.
Correct.
Can we find that out before we?
Oh, we've looked into it. I mean, I can go off market and go to other golf courses, but again, there's no guarantees. Those are going to be, keep it going more than a month or two at best.
Okay, so that
I just think it's a waste of time to go out and
It's a
do all
waste
that
of time.
and
You're not
and
recommending
labor.
that route?
No,
Okay.
I am not.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none. We'll go to the H. Smith Richardson Golf Course, 7113. And
This
this is going
budget-
up by $10,000?
This budget, we held the line.
Okay.
And again, one of the increases is capital outlay from 17 to 22, and then contractual items make up the difference. But basically, we held the line on this. We tried to move monies to where Peter actually spends in the accounts that he needs them, and use historical data to keep us in line.
Questions on this budget? I do have one. So where are we in the 10-year plan that we've been working with you and funding with you each year? How many years are we in?
This is year 6. I always get confused with all the numbers, but I think it's year 6. We got approved last night and for $100,000. So.
And it's made a material difference to the course.
Oh, yes. And we are probably be able to finish all the bunkers this year with the money that's being given to us.
Now, does that mean that it won't be a 10-year program?
No, it does not mean that, no. We have, we're looking into, well, I still have some drainage projects, some tees and greens to do. It's all, Jerry and I worked on it all last week, or this week. And so we'll be proceeding.
If I may, we're in the process of revisiting the plan, seeing where we spent the money, okay?
You don't know where you spent the money?
You know, I spent it here and there, you know.
Just checking.
But on the number of bunkers, you know, because we may have shown that we did, you know, we showed in the plan, the proposed plan, we were going to do bunkers 1, 2, and 3 on holes, you know, which we didn't do because we moved something else in front of it. It was an evolving plan, and we kept moving forward. So what I did was we're sitting down, we're seeing where we are. We have approximately $365,000 of work to do on a balance on the infrastructure of the golf course.
Is that already, have we bonded that? Is that
No,
the stuff?
no, we bonded 600 and
Right.
some odd thousand. The balance would be
Right,
about
okay.
365, I believe it is, off the top of my head. The other money of, I believe it's 3.4 million, and that's for the clubhouse, parking area, cart barn, restroom facility.
Yeah, where does that stand in the process?
Well, we hope to be moving forward, I hope to be coming forward this summer with we're in negotiations with the First Selectman and moving a building committee to at least propose it and get some funding to start the program. We have to make a decision soon because the infrastructure needs.
It's failing?
Yes.
So the infrastructure in the current buildings is failing?
Yeah, we need to make a decision about heating, air conditioning. There's no insulation in the building. I'm basically heating the outside of the building. You turn the heat on, turn the air on. It's just going. It's got 1970 windows in it. It's just a block building. So we're also looking at other avenues, possibly a public-private partnership in certain areas, whether it's doable or not. You know, but I have a laundry list of ideas. But I hope to bring something forward this summer.
Great. Questions, comments from board members? Mr. Walsh?
Peter, this Greens aerifier, do we have one at the Part 3, or do we use it for both places?
No, I have two. One was in 1999, one's in 2001, and John has one down there himself.
Okay. So
This
there's
is to
one
replace.
already there.
And they're pretty obsolete. They're 15 years old.
Yeah. Okay.
Questions, comments, concerns? All right, with that, I believe that is the last budget, correct? I didn't-
Well, not really.
Okay.
I would like to say so, but you skipped over Penfield.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
Well, I just didn't want to leave you hanging.
No,
No,
thank
you
you
just
for
didn't want to
that.
come back again.
Yeah.
You'd say aye.
I wish it was, I wish it was,
We'd love to have you come back another night, Jerry.
yeah. Okay. Go right ahead. Thank you for reminding me.
This
I think.
increase of approximately $31,000, again, is seasonal payroll of $95.95.
And that's not additional payroll, that's actually increased rates, correct?
Correct. $5,000 of it is increased payroll because I'm anticipating open 513 hours for May and June. Since the building will be ready, we'll have the lockers, we'll have maintenance staff, as well as the locker attendant. So that's budgeted for May and June. And
What's the $8,000 in contracted services?
18,000?
18,000.
That's for the restroom facilities, the trailers that we put down before we had them, and that was paid for, we were reimbursed by the insurance. Okay, we'll no longer be reimbursed by the insurance. We had taken that originally out of the bonding money.
Oh, so that'll be for this summer?
This will be for July, well, yeah, it's really going to start this May, and I believe I shared that in my quarterly that I'm going to be in a deficit.
So this will be
May.
July, August, and September?
I'm budgeting for July, August, and September.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
So that's an increased cost because the facility isn't open.
Correct.
It was reimbursed to us
In previous years.
in previous years, but now that reimbursement is no longer available, so this is an absolute cost.
Right.
So right now, this year, we're going to lose, for this summer, we're going to lose both revenue as well as we have increased expense.
Yes.
Okay.
And the other little increase is the $4,000 that I put back in for the marketing of the facility when we get closer to opening.
And does that tie to the actual business plan
Yes.
that we had seen?
Mm-hmm.
Questions, comments on these items? Mr. Becker?
Two things. One, just going back on the revenue side, yeah, I know. But you guys had adjusted, now it's going to cost $50 for out of town for those daily passes, so the revenue's going down there. Isn't there sort of, I mean, was that, it's obviously the votes by the commission dated back a little bit, but I thought that it was sort of a goal to, obviously to raise it, to sort of deter, but to kind of find that equilibrium. So is there a plan now to say, hey, look, we actually are losing revenue that we need, so maybe we want to charge a little less, but still more, or, you know, just, or are you just kind of saying that we're at $50, this is a new line, and that's it?
I think we're at the $50, and that's the new line. But I also believe that we have to give it, because we raised it when Penfield's been closed. Okay? And we really have no amenities there. That was the draw. So I think that once we get the facility open, okay, we may see the influx of people coming back, okay, and using the facilities like they were. If not, the commission may sit back and say, you know, let's revise or revamp or review how we're doing things. But right now, I think
Okay.
it's $50.
So
Plus,
wait and see
There was
until-
other, you know, there was also the other, we wanted to not only raise revenue, but we wanted to make sure that we had space for our residents at the facilities. Non-residents wish to use our facilities, or any, not just non-residents, anyone without a sticker. You could be a resident, not have a sticker, and still pay the fee. So we wanted to make the facilities more accessible to our residents.
Okay. And then just on the golf equipment side, have you looked at any sort of, and besides coming for here, but maybe some sort of grants? I thought that I've seen that there's, I want to say CCM, maybe they were the facilitator, but that there's some sort of golf equipment program out there. Not,
I believe
Try
that
and
was
look, but-
for, if I'm correct, that was for small chainsaws,
Okay.
weed whackers, those type, I believe that's.
So
what-
nothing when you get up into this,
I don't recall, but we also have discussed, and Peter. was
Getting,
town sharing with.
like
other
with Trumbull, well, seeing that Westport's now being sourced out, but like Trumbull and Bridgeport, Ed Bowman has some things that we can talk, we'll get money from the state, and like Trumbull will pay a third for a piece of equipment that it's not used all the time, like a big air fryer, or, I mean, we could get an air fryer to share with them, but he wasn't interested in that one, but big tractors, overseeders, something of that nature, that Trumbull will pay a third, we pay a third, and the state will pay a third.
so for the air fryer now, they're not interested, but you're looking at trying to do
Because
that.
Trumbull had just bought a bunch of them, so they're all set with those, unfortunately.
Are we able to pay them some money and get use instead?
We're working, I have a better idea as going forward. I'm actually meeting with the superintendent from Trumbull next week, and we're going to discuss a lot of sharing of equipment and whatnot.
Well, if the air fryer comes up before our budget vote, we'd
It won't.
love to hear
It
that.
won't.
All right.
Strategically.
Yeah, exactly, uh-huh.
I see something
All right.
moving to contingency.
I'm good then, thank you, guys.
Any other questions from anybody? Seeing none, gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for your patience. My apologies for the late evening. Have a good one. Thank you. Couple programming notes. First of all, this is the end of our formal joint budget hearings, so we say goodbye to our colleagues on the Board of Selectmen. Thank you once again for a very fruitful discussion and partnership on the budget. We appreciate it. We also want to thank members of the administration, particularly the Finance Department, for all your hard work and effort. Mrs. Gardner, Mr. Mayor, thanks for everything, and thank you for the quick follow-up on most of our items. Greatly appreciated. Thursday night, we have our public executive session, which means that'll be a discussion amongst our board only, where we'll discuss our overall views on the budget. Could be quite quick, could be quite lengthy, really depends on the year. We won't take public comment. I have not specifically asked all the department heads to be here. Mr. Mayor, Mrs. Gardner will be here. We do have all of our follow-up items. I'm sure some department heads might show up, but this is really meant to be a discussion more than anything formal in terms of presentations. If we have any follow-up questions that you can think of, please forward them to myself, Mr. Mayor, and Jennifer Carpenter so that we can attempt to get those answered. And then on Saturday morning, we have our public open forum at 9:30 a.m. It's either is it at the high school? It's at Ludlow High School. In their auditorium. Some years we get a lot of people and it goes for 2.5 hours. Other years we don't get a lot of people and it goes for an hour. So we'll just have to wait and see who and what shows up on that morning. And that's it. Does anybody have anything else? Everyone, thank you for all your time and attention during our budget hearings. My apologies for the lateness of the hour. Have a good evening, and we'll take a motion. Mr. DeWitt, seconded by Mrs. Leclerc. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? We're adjourned. See everybody Thursday night.